do I ask for the quorum first, or just go ahead and start the meeting?
Go ahead and start the meeting. We know that there's 4 people on the call.
Okay. So work sessions are an opportunity for board members to discuss issues informally with staff and invited guests. The board encourages members of the public to attend work sessions and listen to the discussions, but there is generally no opportunity for public comment. Members of the public wishing to address the board are welcome to do so during the board regularly scheduled meetings. Okay, so the first thing on here is board communication. We have 10 minutes for that. Who would like to start?
I have a question. This is Commissioner Neviker.
Okay.
I would like to know more about the death at the jail, and if we have a liability exposure with this. I mean, I'm very sorry about it. I don't mean to just talk about the financial or litigical problem, but it is something that I wanted to know about.
Commissioner Neviker, this is Don. What I would say is that maybe we can have an offline conversation in a little bit more detail. I think the sheriff can provide a little background on it right now, but then we will follow up on the other part of your question.
Okay.
And the sheriff is here, so he can provide a little bit more background.
Okay, so on February 2nd, this individual was...
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing the sheriff.
Can you hear me now?
That's better, yes, thank you.
Okay. On February 2nd, this individual was arrested by Astoria Police on a warrant from the state of Colorado. The charge was sex abuse of a child in a position of, what was it, of trust. And the subject fought extradition to the state of Colorado. The governor's warrant was signed on Monday, so he knew he was going to be going back to Colorado. And then he, shortly after a hourly check, he left his bunk and committed the act in a shower, and then he was found later deceased.
What?
Okay, thank you, Sheriff. I imagine this is a very sensitive issue that we can, as county manager Dean said, that we can discuss further as things progress. So, does anyone else have any of the other commissioners who'd like to say something and as part of the board communication?
This is Pam Webb. I'm here.
Excellent. Very good. Welcome.
This is Commissioner Quila, and I wanted just to comment that the message about staying home and out of not going to the beach is just on coin 6 right now, so they're just talking about it. So the press release has worked to some extent, that people are getting the message out on Portland media that you should stay off the beaches and stay out of the gorge.
We are appreciative of that.
I agree, I like it.
So this is Commissioner Neviker, and I brought this up at the meeting, meeting earlier, with Tiffany. I don't know if we have any new information that would help me make this decision in my own mind, but I have thought about this, that there may be people that have food insecurity now because they might have lost their jobs, and maybe they need to clam on the beach in order to get some protein. I don't know if that's a reality or not. I don't know how to assess that, but it has occurred to me that this could be something that we need to consider. I know that it's been requested by, I know our chair, and the mayor of Gerhardt, at least, has asked that the clamming be closed. They've asked the governor to do this, and maybe that is the right thing, but I do have concerns about people being able to get food that they need.
Okay, Commissioner Nebuchadnezzar, this is Don again. As part of the COVID update, we're going to talk about the beach closures, and we've had some conversations with some of the professional clammers, and so we can maybe talk about that as part of the first agenda item.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else, there's less than about another 5.5 minutes. Any other commissioners like to say something?
This is Commissioner Webb. I would just like to say that I would like more information. Once again, on the coordinator's call, Jennifer Purcell said that she would send something to me, and so far she hasn't. But I'd like to know who is talking to whom about what the impacts have been on our local fisheries. And that includes the razor clam folks. So I would just, I'd like more information on that whole process and what's going on.
Are you talking in terms of COVID-19?
Yeah. And what has, I'm concerned about what, I haven't heard anything from our regular fishing fleet folks. But I do know that when, we had the rush to our beaches, when the clamming in Washington state was ended. And I know that our folks usually, the state of Washington and the state of Oregon folks who control fisheries usually are very much in sync and coordinate with each other very well. So I'd like to hear something about what the status, who does that, who's talking to them. I was pleased to hear Jennifer Purcell say that they were working on it, but I just haven't heard anything. So I'd like to know, who's doing what on this.
Commissioner Webb, this is the sheriff. Last week, the end of last week, I know that Tillamook County was really pushing the issue, and Sheriff Horton contacted me from Tillamook County and let me know and shared some communications. But I believe that their commission was trying to get the state to close down clamming. The purpose, of course, was not because clamming itself was an issue, but to keep visitors from coming. And specifically, it was mentioned that they were concerned about commercial diggers who live in Washington but have a license to commercially dig in Oregon. On a different note,
Right.
I talked to a friend of mine whose brother is employed in construction and has lost some work recently and is able to dig maybe $100 to $150 of clams a night, and that's a real shot in the arm for him and his family right now. And I've been contacted with by several other people with commercial clamming licenses, and there's, the fisheries they typically engage in are closed right now, so this is actually a source of income for them.
Right. Yes, I've heard that. That's why I'm concerned about that anything we do is balanced between those who make a living from fisheries and those who do it for sport.
Well, I think, again, if we, on the first topic, after Mike does his overview, we can talk in a little bit more depth about the beaches and the clammers and some of the conversations that we have been having with them.
Okay, thanks.
Can I speak to something really quick? I did just get a call or an email from one of the directors, Gail, who is on the call, and she has been doing the hotline, and about 50% of the calls that she has received are people from Portland who want to come to the beach to clam.
Boy, that's interesting.
Hey, I didn't get that. People from Portland who want
50% of the phone calls that Gail has received when working on the hotline have been people who are from Portland calling to come down to clam dig.
Okay.
On another topic, the folks that I've been talking to and asking how they're doing with all of this, one of my concerns is as this goes on longer, we need to find ways in order to ensure good mental health, and people being isolated in homes or in crowded conditions with children that normally go off to school and spouses that go to work, and so one of the necessities will be that they get out and walk. And I liked on the cooperators call today when Amy Baker said that she supported trying to find creative solutions to this, because we do have to find a balance between out-of-town guests crowding our beaches and locals coming and doing what they would normally do. And that's the trick of it all, is trying to find balance on that.
This is, well, I don't know, maybe we want to wait and talk more about the beaches. I'll hold my comments. I have something else I want to say.
Okay. Does anyone else want to add something more to the communications for the commissioners? If I can stop this. Timer ends just a minute. I hate this thing. God, so much for technology and Kathleen. All right, so our time is up for communication for board commissioners. So let's go on to discuss the formal agenda. Does anyone have any comments or questions about the formal agenda?
This is for the work session, right?
For the work session also, yes.
Okay.
But if you also have comments about the regular meeting session too, I think we can, isn't that correct, Don?
Yes,
The formal agenda is for the also work session and the regular meeting, or?
yes, it's really for your board to ask any questions that you might have about the actual regular meeting agenda. We have staff here that can answer questions if you have any.
Okay.
This is Commissioner Thompson. I had a question about the last appointment to the Budget Committee. I'd like us to have a fuller discussion of what we're looking for to help us decide who's the best fit for that last vacant position, and not jump to nominating somebody.
So,
That's my request, is that we have a discussion of it, of what we're looking for and how people fit, and then move into a nomination, so that we don't leap to that nomination and seconding and voting before we have a discussion. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Well, how would we do that? We would do that like we normally would do. We would have the staff report, and then I would ask for nominations, and then we would discuss. Is that correct?
This is Joanna. That would
Actually,
be
Chair
correct.
Sullivan, I'm asking for something different than that. I'm asking that before we have nominations, we have a discussion about fit. I want that to be in the interval between the staff report and nominations. That was my request.
Okay. Does anyone else have a problem with that?
No, I think that's a good idea.
Okay. Commissioner Quayla?
Well, I mean, I think under the process, you always have an opportunity to discuss anyway. But if that's what the rest of the commission chooses, that's fine.
This is Commissioner Nebeker. I have a comment about this. I think because we are not discussing this in front of the people who have applied, we might have a little more leeway. I think we're usually a little constrained because we don't want to, say things that might, seem unkind or just inappropriate. I don't think we would do that, but I think that we're all pretty aware that that is a possibility when we're discussing people. So maybe this is a way we can. However, isn't this normally done at the time of an appointment? We then discuss after the nomination, or the, isn't that how that's usually done?
Yes.
Yeah, that was my understanding also, yeah.
And I don't see any reason why we couldn't do that.
I think, this is Don, I think it's just a board preference, and it's really up to your board on how you want to actually do the discussion piece, whether it's before the motion or if it's after.
Well, I'm comfortable with the staff giving a report and then the commissioners asking questions, and see how that proceeds. Does anyone have a problem with that?
What I would say on this, a part of this is that typically we would come to your board before the actual appointments. As you might recall, this is a position that has been advertised and recruited for, and we did not have a candidate from District 3. And so we had extended the recruitment period, and we just received a candidate that I think is employed in District 3, and that new applicant was shared with your board. And so we had the 3 previous applicants and then a new applicant. And so one option is to just discuss this as though it was a work session before the evening of the actual appointment, so that going into the board, you know, your board has already had an opportunity to actually discuss.
It's my understanding it's District 1, is that correct?
They live in District 1, yes, but this, I believe, is a candidate that Commissioner Webb had spoken to, and I think that they are employed within District 3.
Oh, I see, okay.
She actually owns a business in District 3. That was what I mean. Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like people don't have strong feelings one way or the other?
I actually, as Commissioner Thompson, I actually do have a strong feeling that we talk about what's the most salient characteristic of the nominee. You know, we have someone now who owns a business in District 3. Is the geography and the equitable distribution, geographically speaking, the most salient characteristic? Are there other characteristics? I'd just like us to talk about that as a board, hoping that we would come to some agreement, or at least understand each other's point of view by having a full discussion. So I do have a strong opinion. Thank you.
Well, I think that the decisions also need to be made in the way that we've made decisions for the other board members too. So, for the budget committee also. But I'm certainly open to having a discussion about so that we're clear on what we're nominating and what results we want.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with doing that. That's fine. We can have the discussion before the nomination. That's fine.
Yeah.
And when we receive the staff report, we can ask questions of staff too, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So let's close that part of the formal agenda discussion and move on to the topics. And the first one is the COVID-19 update. And Don Boone, would you be able to run the? I understand you're going to kind of kind of lead these next two topics. Is that correct?
Yes, that would be
And
fine.
we also, Jeff Schultz is gonna give us some information.
Yeah, so what we're going to start with is the first item, which is the COVID-19 update. Mike will go first with a briefing, and then the sheriff and I will then have a conversation with you about the beach access issue. So Mike can go ahead.
Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, Commissioners. Mike McVicker. First, we still only have 5 confirmed cases of COVID. We have news that at least 2, maybe even 3 now, have recovered completely. That's the good news. And then,
Can I interrupt? I'm sorry, I'm unable to understand what Mike is saying. It's a terrible connection.
Yeah, Mike, you're not coming through clearly.
Yeah.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. So I just want to let people know we still only have 5 confirmed cases. And we know that at least 2, maybe even 3 of them have now fully recovered. And we're still going to keep them as cases if they've been confirmed, even though they are recovered. There's been about 230 tests completed, and we still only have 5. So that's a pretty low percentage of those tests for folks who are showing potential symptoms. So there is influenza, as it shows, is going around the community as well. So that may be what we're seeing a lot of more than COVID, which is good news. Public health is really focused on a couple of things right now, and one of them is a medical surge in the case that we do have a sudden, if the peak does occur in the next week or so, are we able to have enough beds and enough PPE and enough staff to make sure that we have all those needs covered. We have worked with Providence and CNH, and both of them do have medical surge plans. Now, the other thing we're working on is an alternative care site, which would mean in the case that the hospitals are overwhelmed, that we have a place where we could take people who are not COVID, but they also still need to be treated. We were working for a couple of alternative care sites. We should have that. Hopefully, we have a conversation coming up on Thursday, and hopefully we'll have that resolved. At the same time, we're doing a very active information education campaign. I share with you some of the videos that we're making to reach out to folks. And Bridget Blakesley is doing a great job in getting those scripts done and having a videographer, Catherine Crombie, get those out. And we have, we would like to ask the commissioners if they're interested to take part in those videos, and if you have interest in doing messages to folks about, whatever you'd like to talk about as related to COVID, whether it be, stay safe, stay healthy, whatever it is, please let me know. We will make sure that we get you involved in that. Some of the other things we're working on is also logistics. We do have a PPE plan in place out at Camp Riley where people are dropping off donated masks. We're making sure that the limited amount of PPE we're receiving is going to our high priority locations and needs to the providers, whether it be EMS or a hospital or private providers or long-term care facilities. We do have some work on that that's being led by Sherry Sauber, our long-term public health nurse. So we have a lot of different things going on. And we really leave the beach access issues to the sheriff and Don Bloom. We're really trying to focus on the health piece. So I can take any questions if you have any.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Nebaker. Thank you for doing such a wonderful job. I know you guys are working really, really hard, and I think it's paying off to quell people's fears, but also in preparation. But so how would that work for the different commissioners to do some kind of video commentary or outreach? How does that work?
So basically, if you have interest, I'll make sure that Bridget Blakesley gets a hold of you. We actually, this is Commissioner Nebaker, I think it is, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I can't tell the voices, sorry. So we talked about having Bridget actually come to your house and have video done there, and you're talking about the mental health piece, about how important it is to be outside and taking care of yourself. So it just depends on what messages you want to do. So that's the sort of thing we want to do is, make sure that we get the right commissioner who wants to send whatever message it is. We work with them on the script, and then we'll video them where they want to be and send that message out.
Yeah, I'd be interested in that. And I'm friends with Bridget, so that would make it easy.
Great. Well, I'll have her contact.
Commissioner Thompson, I'd be interested too.
Great. Thank you. I know I spoke to Commissioner Sullivan, and I'm assuming Commissioner Quayler will be also interested as he's participating in IMT, so that'd be great. And then also Commissioner Webb, that'd be fantastic. So.
Happy to.
I think it shows that it's not just public health, but it's also the whole government, county government is behind this effort, and that we're all are very in lockstep with each other in trying to make sure our community is safe and healthy. So if that'd be fantastic when you guys help out. Thank you.
I agree. Thank you very much. Yeah. I did one today. I don't think any of the I don't think I'm slated for Hollywood, but I did do one. So, okay.
Any other questions?
Good job, Dr. McNichol.
Thank you.
Excuse me,
It's really a testament to our public health team. They're working really hard, and even though the pressure's on, I have to commend each and every one of them. They're just doing a fantastic job.
yes, that was a confirmation from I do have a question, Mike. On the coordinator's call today, there was a discussion also about PPE, and I noticed on some of the daily things coming out of OHA. I mean, there are a lot of mixed messages and rumors going on about PPE. Has Oregon received a shipment from the federal government?
We've received a few, but like 10% of what we've actually requested from FEMA. So, but FEMA was in a serious. They found themselves in a quandary that they had no way of doing the amount that was being requested. So, from all the other states, and so Oregon got about 10% of what they requested.
Okay, and have you had any trouble getting anything from OHA?
No, not yet. We get what we're not getting everything we asked for. Everything is being allocated on a needs basis. So, like the counties that are hit harder with bigger populations, like Washington County, there's any more focus on those. But so far, we've been getting allocations at least weekly. Now, they're not everything we want, but it's enough to keep us going as long as we don't have a giant medical surge.
Right. Okay, good. Thank you.
And Mike, the supplies are coming into the state, and then the state is dispersing them to the counties, and then the counties are dispersing them. Is that the chain?
That's the chain. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mike, this is Commissioner Nebeker. I have a question about, did I mishear this, that the governor has asked everyone to wear masks?
So the CDC has actually recommended that people, when they're outside or everywhere, wear a mask. So we haven't really we've been working on that masking message about it's not always easy because not everyone has one. And the trouble is that if you don't message it right, here's the dilemma: is you get a false sense of security with a mask if it's not an N95 mask that's been fit tested, because a mask gives you some protection, but it's not 100%. So we don't want to send a message that says, yes, if you wear a mask, you're never going to get COVID. That's simply not true. It does give you a level of protection, but we can't say how much. So we're trying to figure out how to get the message out there, encourage people to wear masks. But again, like we have in our video, you have to treat masks like underwear. You have to wash them daily. So we have to get some of these messages about how to properly use PPE. And so it's a little longer process because we want to make sure that the messages are correct and yet don't give anybody a false sense of security.
Okay.
And also, sorry. my understanding is the mask is you're doing your part of protecting other people from your own germs. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, right.
And this is Commissioner Nebeker again. What about, now I've forgotten my question. Sorry.
Okay.
I'll come back to you.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
Now I know what it is. Okay,
Okay.
so I saw a model that showed that, I think it's Oregon, that we're supposed to have our peak sometime in the middle of the month. Is that correct? And is that true for us, or do we even know here in the
Well,
county?
so here's the thing, right? Is that those are just models, and they're not exactly predictive, but they are a model. And the only trouble is with those models is that they're not taking into consideration that we're not doing massive testing. If we did community-wide testing, we would know when the peak's going to happen because we know how many people have it. And so, but the problem is that it's a kind of a guesswork. But from what we've seen, if it is around the middle of the month, that's great news for Oregon. And we're hoping that the model also is. We're hoping that it's right, but I can't say that it's anywhere near 100%.
Well, could this virus roll through the states? So we know it's really bad on the East Coast and some parts, further in, and then, but could it just continue rolling through, or is it because everybody's staying home that the peak will be similar, or?
I think what you're seeing also is the urban versus rural lag, that it takes longer for the virus to reach the rural areas than it does the urban ones because of population density. So it takes a little longer to get through the Midwest and then all the way out. But if you notice where the real major population centers are like Detroit, New York, Florida, down in the Florida area, California, Seattle, those are the ones that hit the hardest because they're the most population in a small area. It takes a while for that virus to filter out to get to the rural areas, but I don't think we've seen the end of this. But if we keep flattening the curve, then the impact of having a huge curve goes down, and we don't have to worry about things like not having enough PPE, not having enough staff, and not having enough medical beds. So that's the key to this.
Well, what about tests? Is there any hope of getting more tests?
Yeah, hope springs eternal, yes. So, we keep making requests for it. We don't have those tests yet like we do in the paper today. Even our two new hospitals have, 300 or 400. That's hardly enough to do community testing. So at some point, I'm hoping that, these new test kits that are coming out that are fairly quick tests are coming to the West Coast. We haven't seen any yet. And still, the other issue is that even if you do get a test now, unless it's through the public health lab, if it's through LabQuest, through Quest or LabCorp, we're looking for a 7 to 10 day or longer turnaround time for those test results. So, there's a couple of issues in the system. One, if you get more tests right now, they can't process them any faster than they're going. So we could test everybody, but by the time we got the results back, you may have already resolved your issue. The disease may have passed. So there's a couple, it's like a circular argument on this. We do more testing, but we can't get the results. So, at some point, we just have to continue with what we're doing with social distancing and eliminating mass gatherings to the degree possible, and wear masks, and hope that this thing finally just drains itself out of the population and everything gets well and we move on.
So the rural areas may actually have to stay home longer.
It's possible.
Okay, thank you.
So, Commissioner, if it's okay, I'm going to go ahead and start on the second part of the COVID update, which is talking about beaches. Just a little bit of a background is that, we learned a lot during the spring break activities, and basically what we learned was that was one end of the pole, then that kind of defined what was unacceptable. And based upon what happened, your board, cities, all agreed that there would be prohibitions placed on short-term rentals, hotels, and camping. And those prohibitions were very effective. It obviously reduced the number of tourists, travelers that we had in the community, and it created a couple weeks for us to kind of gain our breath. What happened, though, is that there was a concern raised with the improving weather about whether or not those different remedies were going to be effective for the day trippers during the warm weather. And so that's why there was a conversation with the cities and with the county about beach access, because as you know, except for Seaside, we don't have control of the beaches in terms of closure. That resides with the state, and what the county and the cities control is their public right-of-way access to the beach. And so we discussed that last week, and on Friday there was a press release saying that we were going to be closing our two main beach access points, which is Delray and Sunset, and Gearhart at the same time was going to be closing 10th Street. We put barriers up and signs, but the barriers and the signs weren't strong enough to withstand the motivated folks that wanted to get to the beach. And so the sheriff on Saturday night went in with Public Works and cleared out the beach and erected a more larger barrier, but even that barrier also was moved Sunday. So, you know, I think that on the one pole we have spring break, which was unacceptable. On the other pole you have beach closure. And what the county has been working on with our cities is to find something in between that is effective. And so that is where we landed on those temporary beach access closures. We've been reticent because we are concerned about the long-term nature of the stay home, save lives order and the impact that that has just on the well-being and the mental health of our residents. And so, you know, on the one side, we are encouraging people to stay home except for essential trips, but we also want people to recreate. And so I think kind of the missing message there has been recreate in your own community. And so part of the efforts staff has been making with the cities, with the press release and the news coverage that we're now getting, is to reinforce what really should be a statewide message, which is, yes, stay home as much as you possibly can. If you need to go out, social distance, use good personal hygiene. If you're going to go recreate, though, recreate in your own community. So we believe and we hope that that will help alleviate some of the pressure we might see. So Public Works has or is installing gates both at Sunset and at Delray. But from staff's perspective, and I think the sheriff's, is that we would like to keep those open as much as we possibly can, not just for the clamors, but for residents. But that they would have gates so that they could be closed if we had any kind of a problem. And so, again, we're trying to find that reasonable, common sense way to kind of meet both purposes, which is to protect public health, dissuade folks from making a trip from their home community to ours to recreate, but to still maintain access for residents. So the sheriff has been kind of leading this charge for us, so I'm going to hand it over to him, and then we're happy to take any of your questions.
Well, Don explained that so darn good. I don't know that I have a whole lot to add to it, but if I did, it would be to explain, I guess, my perspective or the lens that I see or view the issue through. and it's a little bit philosophical, but what the heck, I'll do it anyways. But basically, this coronavirus pandemic is something that's certainly new to most people's lifetimes, and the response has resulted in orders that, really limit people's liberties. And that liberty is, a strongly held value in the United States. And so these broad strokes of the brush of the various orders that have been imposed would be impossible for law enforcement to effectively control, but for the social contract, which is the theory that people submit to the rule of government or the authority of law enforcement in exchange for some level of protection. And right now, the fear of exposure to the virus is our friend in gaining compliance with the current orders. My concern is that as this continues and the orders to stay home persist for longer and longer, the fear of the virus will be replaced by the fears from the loss of jobs and things like that, or that people no longer have the inner strength to only stay at home. And so I think that our response always needs to be reasonable and proportionate to the problem at hand. And if we don't do that, then we might lose that voluntary compliance with the orders. So it's a kind of a difficult balance to find, and I am certainly concerned about the welfare of our citizens in our community, and want to maintain what recreational options are still available to them, but also reasonably address the outside threat from visitors.
So if I might add,
I'm having trouble hearing you, Sheriff.
I'm sorry, I could repeat part of that, but I am talking right into the microphone.
Just the last part.
I think you just came away at the last. So.
Oh, okay. I was just explaining that our response needs to be reasonable and proportionate, because if not, we might lose control, that voluntary compliance component. So, and I'm certainly concerned about our citizens and making sure there's still some recreational opportunities for them to engage in, and while appropriately socially distancing, but also respond to the threat of visitors from outside our community.
So if I can just add to what the sheriff is saying, is that we are going to put a lot of effort into the media campaign, and that includes social media, try to get the message out. And then what we have spoken about is the potential of closing the beach accesses Friday night until Monday morning.
Yes.
Late Friday night into Monday morning, and then reopening them Monday morning through then Friday night.
Right.
We have Ted, our Public Works Director, did talk to some of the clammers and some of the kind of leaders of the professional clammers, and the ones that he spoke to thought that having it open Monday through Friday was great, and they appreciated that. And I think that what we would suggest is that we're just going to play this by ear and see how it goes, and we would weigh or kind of err on the side of not restricting it if we can, but having the option to restrict it if we need to is why the gates have been and will be installed. So again, just trying to find kind of that middle ground that doesn't lean too far, because again, we know what doesn't work, and that's spring break. And I think that if we closed the beaches, or if the state did, that would create some similar challenges for us. So that's kind of where staff is, and we're happy to answer any questions.
If I may add a point of clarification, closing the accesses would mean closing it to vehicle access, not to pedestrian access.
I have a question. This is Commissioner Nabaker. Do the professional clammers, do they require their vehicles to be down there?
It certainly makes it easier for them, but I did talk to one commercial
Okay.
digger who was pleased to take his mountain bike with a cart behind it and ride 1.5 miles up the beach and have the whole place to himself.
Aw. That shows flexibility. So, I'm a little, I'm not sure I understand about the closure on the weekends. Since, is it because there's so many people that actually still have jobs that they go to, so that that would cut that down for people who have the weekends off? Is that the idea?
I think that's the theory that we're working under, that many people are still working and that weekends would be peak times.
So,
Okay.
yeah, Commissioner, I think part of that is to dissuade folks who aren't recreating in their own community, is to not feel that they can recreate here, or if they decide to, that it would be difficult to recreate here. And so I think the general feeling, and again, part of our goal would be flexibility, is that if it is a really nice weather weekend, we might err on the side of closing it, knowing that it will reopen Monday morning, just to dissuade folks as much as we can, because we don't want to put pressure on the limited resources that the county and the cities have. And so, and then if it's not a problem, then obviously we would err on the side of not restricting. But the real goal of the weekend restrictions is to dissuade folks from coming into the community.
And how is that message of recreating in your own community, which I think is a very good idea, how is that going to be communicated?
So Chair Sullivan did a video today about that topic, so that will be out there. But that is, that topic, or that subject matter was the basis for the recent press release that went out to the Portland and the Seattle markets. And that's why Commissioner Cuella saw it, I think he said on a coin, is because we sent it out there and they are following up. Tom has had interviews with Portland TV stations also today. So, and the real focus is, you know, for the time being during this pandemic, we really need everybody to do their part, and right now doing that is to stay in your home community for everything, for shopping, for recreating, for everything. Stay in your home community. So that's, we're going to be doing it with the big media, meaning the TV stations, radio stations. We would like there to be kind of a PSA at the state level, because we do believe this is a statewide message that needs to be reinforced, because it's not only coastal counties, but it's Hood River, it's the Gorge, it's Bend. I mean, all of those tourist destinations they're experiencing the same challenges.
And Commissioner, this is
thank you.
Sheriff again.
I'm also getting, I'm sorry.
Well, I just wanted to add, one of the pressures that's been brought up many times is the clam digging. I just pulled up a tide table. The minus tides are what's really favorable for clam digging, and we're going to run out of those by Monday the 13th. And they get to be pretty late prior to that, so like almost midnight. So I think that a lot of that pressure of the clam digging is going to go away just by the nature of the tides.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, that's good to know. I'm starting to get calls from constituents here that are they're upset because all the parks are closed to them for recreation, and they're concerned if the beach is closed, then they won't have any opportunity. They're upset that these are people who live in Seaside, that the Seaside beach is closed, and so they're concerned, and I agree with, we do need that for our mental health for our people here to be able to walk out in nature as much as possible.
I agree with Commissioner Nebeker. I think that the approach is a sound one. Obviously, have to be monitoring it closely. I was curious about how, we will know whether it's too much to continue leaving the beach open. Is that going to be complaint-driven? Basically, I know I've had constituents myself that said, there's a bunch of people driving, too many people on the beach. And then I guess we would just contact county manager or have the sheriff go out there. I just don't know. It's kind of a hard one to know exactly how to monitor and then reach a threshold that you got to close the beach. And I without any kind of measurements there, it's difficult for me to kind of wrap my arms about how much is too much.
Well, I think, Commissioner, this is Don. The sheriff and I talked about this today, and it is kind of a nebulous thing, and I think what it's going to take is a group of folks, and that would include the sheriff, and it would probably include our public health folks, and it would include, some of the city inputs also, but what I would like us to do is it's really based upon more health issues than it is anything else. And so the sheriff has become kind of the point, and I think when I say point, it's just for those 2 county right-of-ways that are going into the beach, because those are the only 2 that we're talking about, is just Delray and Sunset. And I think the sheriff is kind of the point there, and the sheriff would be reaching out to other folks and getting input, but it would really be based upon public health issues, so that we can take, some of the emotion out of it. But I wish there was a hard and fast metric on that, but I think we're going to learn as we go, because this is all new.
I like that. I like that public health would ultimately be able to weigh in and have some recommendation.
All right. We can work this out in the next couple of days, and it certainly, when we did it last weekend, it was pretty simple and easy and fast to sweep the beach. Speaking of sweeping the beach, it's not that we had the necessary authority to kick the people off the beach, but we just told them that we suggest they leave before the access is completely blocked and they can't get their vehicle back onto the pavement.
Yeah, I commend you for doing that, and both Public Works and Sheriff's Office did a tremendous job of doing that. Do you have a flyer or anything that you can hand to people that basically tells them, hey, the beach accesses are closed, we're trying to protect the public health here, and so it's not just you just verbally having to tell people?
I couldn't hear that.
The city of
If you
Camp
don't,
Beach has
we can actually make one if that's what the commissioners would like to do. We can certainly put that together if that's what County Manager Boone and Sheriff Phillips thinks is a good idea. We'd be happy to do that.
I think it's an excellent idea, because I think that as much as anything that we can do that is public education as well as looking like an enforcement issue, I think anything we can do is a good thing.
Yeah,
It's actually not my idea. County Beach has one. I think that they're handing out.
Uh-huh.
well, and
Is that Commissioner Correa?
Yeah.
Can you send that to me? Or some like
Yes, I will. Yes, I will.
And then we can use that as a template for what we're doing, so we could use similar messages. If you think that's what we should do, Sheriff Phillips?
Well, I'm having a devil of a time hearing myself, and there's some loud Harleys that seem to drive by. But were you referring to the City of Cannon Beach's flyer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say if we modeled ours off of theirs and we made a bunch, would that be helpful to our effort out there on the beaches?
I received a copy of that flyer today. And so, yeah, we can discuss that.
Right.
And so what I would suggest, Board, is that the sheriff, Mike, myself, others can get together in the next couple of days and kind of figure out more of a hard and fast approach with that. We just wanted to more just get your sense of whether we're going in the right direction tonight, and then we'll work through some of those details and then share them with you.
And Don, can I have one more question about Delora Beach? Did we ever figure that one out, about Delora Beach access?
So I talked to Ted about that, and that is a county road, and so we're going to be working with Warrenton to remove the barrier that they have put up, and so that we can put up a similar gate that we're putting over at Sunset and at Delray.
Okay, great.
This is Commissioner Nebeker. I have a question about Cullowby Lake. Are there any problems there? Has that been closed? How is that working?
So, yeah, Cullowby Lake is one of the couple county parks that is closed, and the main reason is because of the playground and because of the shelters that they have, and not wanting to be an attractor to some of the mass gathering issues. The actual walking trail for the folks that are living around the lake is still being used, but the park itself, mainly the playground, isn't. The rest of the county parks are still open besides Carnahan, and so, because we did want to allow park access in those areas that wouldn't be attractors or create other challenges. So right now, we have 2 that are closed and the rest are still open.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Webb. I have a question about our coordination with the cities, because each of the cities has a little bit different, expanses and characteristics to their beaches. Are they doing similar things to what we're talking about?
Well, this is Don, Commissioner Webb. We speak to the cities on a regular basis, and not surprisingly, this beach topic comes up regularly. And every community is approaching this a little bit uniquely, but we're all supporting each other as we do it, because every community has its unique perspectives and its unique needs. And again, the county's role is just these 2 right-of-way access points. And so we are coordinating with them actively. We're trying to support each other. Everybody's doing it a little bit uniquely, but as in the case with the flyer, we can still learn from each other, and that's happening all the time.
Well, but are the rules different?
The rules are different depending upon which city is providing access. Cannon Beach is doing it differently than what Seaside is, because Seaside is actually closed. As you get up closer north, Gearhart's doing it a little bit more similarly to what the county's doing it, but they have closed off 10th Street. So it's the county that's being a little bit more flexible in terms of actually keeping the beach access open, and part of that is just what the beach is like at our access points. As you know, they are wide open spaces and long stretches.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody is doing it differently.
Okay. That's too bad.
Well, I just think it would be very difficult for all of us to agree, because every beach is so unique. Cannon Beach has its unique characteristics, Seaside certainly, and so we tried early on to see if we could come up with a uniform approach, and I think that's what some of the cities would have liked early, but it just wasn't possible. So that's where we decided that let's all coordinate closely, let's agree on some of the social media messaging, and then let's go as a group to the media. So in the last press release that went to Portland and the Seaside, that came from all the cities and the county.
Commissioner Webb, this is the sheriff. I'd like to add that there's a little bit of maybe an enforcement or legal issue. I know that the city of Seaside has some additional authority over their beach related to the 1964 riots, and maybe that authority doesn't extend to Cannon Beach or other places. So that's a complicating factor.
Interesting. I've never heard of that.
And I apologize, Commissioner, but it's already 6 o'clock and we've only gotten to the first topic, so we can bring the second topic to the next work session if you'd like us to.
Yes, I think we're going to have to do that. I think we need to talk about this. So, does anyone else have an issue with bringing the second topic to the next work session? I think that's a good idea.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
And do we have an idea when the next work session will be?
I don't have my calendar in front of me.
Right now, it's scheduled for April 22nd before the next board meeting, but possibly we could schedule an extra work session.
We will look at the calendar
let's
to see if we can schedule maybe a daytime noon work session and just keep it to that one topic.
I personally think that'd be a good idea, just because things seem to be moving so quickly that we don't want to leave topics behind, and because there's going to be other ones coming up behind them.
This is Commissioner Webb. I think it's a good idea for us to at least carve out a couple of hours for a work session every week, because of the COVID issues that we just need to be, we need to be getting this information.
We can certainly do whatever the board's desire is, and we are going to be introducing some additional meeting resources and try and go to meetings so that we can see each other and have a little bit more interaction.
Excellent.
I think that'd be excellent also, because I know that the staff, all the staff is very busy, and we want to be efficient and not have to have them, maybe what I'm hearing you saying is ways that we can be included with work that's already going on. Is that correct?
Is that a question for Don? Or for us?
Yeah, Don, is that am I understanding that correctly?
I'm sorry, Commissioner, I was having a hard time hearing you.
Oh, I was just saying that I know that everybody's working full capacity right now, and trying to find a way to include the commission, the board, in on what you're learning. It sounded like that there may be some calling capacity or something rather than a formal meeting.
Yes, I think,
Okay.
if I heard you correctly.
Okay. Well, we can follow up on emails as we go forward. So let's move into the formal the board meeting. So the regular session is only at 6, a little bit after 6 now. It's about the Board of Commissioners, as the governing board of Clatsop County, all county service districts for which this body so acts, and as the Clatsop County Local Contract Review Board, is now meeting in regular session. Teresa, may we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Nebeker?
Here.
Commissioner Thompson?
Here.
Commissioner Quila?
Here.
Commissioner Webb?
Here.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Here. Okay, so let's move on to the agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
I would move that we approve the agenda. This is Commissioner Nebeker.
I second Commissioner West.
Okay, so the agenda has been approved. Now let's move on to the proclamation. This is,
Commissioner Sullivan, we need to vote on the agenda, please.
oh, I'm sorry, thank you. So all those in, let's have a vote on the agenda. We'll do that as a roll call, I guess? Or do we just do, okay.
No, you just vote, you ask for the vote.
Okay, is it, all those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any against? Aye. Okay, Commissioner Quayle, you're against approving the agenda? No, I said aye, but I was a little delayed. Oh, okay, all right. Okay, so then the agenda has been approved, thank you. Let's move on to the next business item, which is the proclamation on the Child Abuse Prevention Month. Do we just make a motion, or do we don't have a staff report on that?
No, and there's no motion necessary. You can just read the proclamation.
Oh, okay, because that's different than what my script says. So, all right, so it says, is there a motion to approve the resolution proclaiming Child Abuse Prevention Month? Is there a motion?
Yes, is a motion from Commissioner Webb.
And a second? Second. Okay, it has been moved and seconded to approve the resolution proclaiming April 2020 to be the Child Abuse Prevention Month. So, and so then I read it, Teresa? Or do we vote on it now?
Go ahead and vote.
Vote on it. So all those in favor? Aye. All those aye. Any against? Okay, so the motion to proclaim April 20th to be a Child Abuse Prevention Month has passed, and I will read the motion. In the matter of proclaiming April 2020 to be Child Abuse Prevention Month, whereas every child is precious and deserves to grow up in a healthy, safe, and nurturing environment, free from the dangers and harmful effects of child abuse and neglect, and whereas child abuse and neglect impact our entire society, can cause traumatic psychological, emotional, and physical harm, resulting in long-term economic and societal costs. And whereas child-focused prevention and intervention programs offer positive alternatives and outcomes for children and encourage families to develop strong, durable ties to their communities. And whereas child abuse prevention succeeds through partnerships among parents, child welfare agencies, mental and physical health care providers, schools, law enforcement agencies, churches, businesses, and community members by fostering loving, supportive, and violence-free homes. And whereas all citizens need to be aware of the effects of child abuse, neglect, and prevention in order to encourage the model healthy parenting in healthy communities. Now, therefore, we, Clatsop County Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2020 as Child Abuse Prevention Month in Clatsop County, dated this 8th day of April 2020. Thank you. Okay. Now we'll move into the business from the public. Is there any comments that were sent in from the public?
Yes, we received one email from Business from the Public from Jenny Johnson. I'll read her statement. I recently became aware of an effort in and outside Clatsop County to ban pesticide applications due to the statewide COVID-19 crisis. I am very concerned about the impact an action like this would have on our local community. It is critical that local farmers and foresters are able to manage their land for continued food and fiber production during these unprecedented times. As our communities remain at a standstill, it is becoming increasingly clear that some operations must push forward to help provide the vital services and products we all will need in the days and months ahead. Targeted use of herbicides at the beginning of a new forest helps baby tree survival and ensures that a new forest will regenerate after harvest. Without herbicides, the baby trees will become entangled and covered in brush, causing the tree to die. State-licensed aerial applicators are highly trained to make precision applications while following all regulations and safe best practices protocols. They monitor and record wind speed, temperatures, and precipitation to ensure effectiveness and safety. Thanks to technological developments, foresters commonly use all parts of the tree, including bark and even sawdust, to produce many household products. Let us not forget about all the recent talk of the demand for toilet paper. Credit to the hardworking folks at the paper mill in Wana, we are able to have access to wood supplies our household need most during this crisis, so we can adhere to the in-shelter orders and have the products we need at home. We are grateful to our farmers for growing the food on our grocery store shelves and kitchen tables, as well as the foresters growing and harvesting trees in order to keep the vitally important wood and paper products flowing. I appeal to the governor and any local governing bodies, such as the Clatsop County Commission, to not respond to these opportunistic scare tactics during this time. Forestry professionals are trying to ensure society has wood and paper products now and for future generations. Furthermore, in times of need, it is best not to shut off critical care for our forests or jeopardize an industry that employs thousands in our state. That's the end of business from the public.
Thank you, Teresa. Good job. Let's move to the consent calendar. Does anybody have any comments or questions about the consent calendar, or we will move to to have a motion to approve it? Okay, is there a motion to? I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. Second, Commissioner Thompson.
Okay. Commissioner Nebeker, you had a question?
No, I was just
Okay.
making the motion at the same time.
Okay, so thank you very much, Commissioners. So the consent calendar has been approved. All those in favor of the consent calendar, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Is that a delay or is there an opposition to the?
Delay.
Okay, so we're all in favor of the consent calendar. Now let's move on to the Commissioner Liaison Report. Who would like to start this evening? Okay, let's pick Commissioner Thompson. Why don't you start today?
This is a wild ride. I like the fact that we have some control over the tsunami by our behavior, but it's certainly a tsunami. And my concern is not only the immediate health and well-being of people in our community, it's the economic impacts. People are saying things to me like, we have 2 weeks of cash left, and then we're out of business forever. That may be an extreme position, but the balancing point that the county manager referred to in dealing with not only enforcement, but also how to pivot so that we balance health and safety with economic well-being. I want us as a commission to be looking at that, and I'm not sure how to proceed. But I want to put it on the table so that we consider it. And that's really the summary. I mean, we're all flooded with information all day long, every day. We're flooded with feedback, with input, with requests. It's a time like no other. So that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Webb, would you like to go next?
Yes. My calendar, when I open it, for the month of April was loaded. But of course, virtually everything has been canceled. So, even some of the meetings with county-related advisory groups. So I have nothing to report as a liaison, but I really would like to second what Commissioner Thompson said. I want to make sure, I just found out today that in the coordinators meeting that there is to call from my notes here, that there is a recovery team.
Yes.
And as always, when I hear that Jennifer Purcell is involved in something, I always want to know why the commissioners don't know about that. But I would like us to be better informed about issues like that, because I think that we do need to start talking about recovery, and I think we need to start talking about it now. I don't think we have the luxury of waiting. So that's my comment on that issue, and that's all I'm thinking about these days. That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Webb. Commissioner Quayle, would you like to go next?
You know, I really don't have much to add to anything. I have been working at the hospital, and certainly it's been a different environment where everybody's been gearing up for the surge, medical surge. You know, we have discussions every day about PPE usage and what's the proper protocols, and you know, following whatever the CDC and OHA provides in their daily updates. It's been a very interesting last couple months, and I am encouraged with what the latest projections are, and hopefully we will see the peak in a week and a half or so, rather than sometime in May, and it certainly won't be as severe as we once anticipated. But yes, I agree that this recovery is going to take a long period of time, and it's going to take all of our efforts really to go out and boost morale over the next few months, just encouraging folks and trying to find connections and resources for businesses that have lost so much. So I know that we're all up to that, and I'm just very grateful for our staff and for our county manager, health department, and sheriff, and public works department, all they've been doing over the last few weeks. It's a stressful time. It's an exhausting time, but they perform great. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Nebeker?
Thank you. I agree. We need to start looking at how we are going to recover from this in any way possible. I'm especially concerned about mental health and what we're going to be looking at due to the economic impact of this. I know that a lot of businesses will not be able to reopen, and I think this may impact the rural counties even more than urban. I don't know that, but I can see that could happen. And you know, the suicide rates have gone up in rural counties across the nation since the last economic downturn, and they've been increasing every year. I can't imagine what this is going to do. So I think anything that we can do to help with mental health when this is over, whenever that is, and even during, I think it's going to be crucial.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Commissioner. I'm sorry, is that it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is Commissioner Sullivan, and I just wanted to not only thank, our staff, Don Boone, Sheriff's Department, and the Roads Department and the Emergency Management Department. And we're very blessed with the staff that we have that are working so hard. But I also wanted to to thank each of you on the board. I think that you're all doing a great job, and as has been said, we're getting a lot of information all at once, and I know that all of you are working hard. At least from what I'm hearing, you're working hard to talk to your constituents, to think about these problems, and I think that we all have a sense that it is an all hands on deck, and it's going to continue to be so, and it's going to take all 5 of us to help support the staff and help to support our constituents. And so I just want to encourage that we continue to talk to each other and continue to support each other and to understand that we are all doing the best that we can. And I just want to thank you, and I appreciate working with you during these very difficult times. So, and I appreciate all the different expertise and experiences that you bring to this board, and I think that we're lucky to be working together. So thank you.
Thank you,
Likewise,
Chair Sullivan.
all of us. So let's move on to Don. What do you have to say, Don?
Chair Sullivan, members of the board, I just wanted to follow up that we are still working on some other things besides COVID-19. One is the budget process that Monica's working heartily on. The other is that Monica, Teresa, and I met with the PSU team this week and strategizing about the next work session for the strategic plan. And so we're still moving forward with that. That meeting was going to be held in later April, but because of COVID, we're going to be pushing that out to probably May or potentially early June, just depending on how things work out. And then, again, we will be contacting you to schedule a work session for next week so that we can talk about the different options for supporting our nonprofit partners. And I also just want to say that, you know, my appreciation for staff and the board. I've said this before, but I've done this for a long time, and there's nothing that's been quite like the COVID-19 pandemic. And so, but the level of communication and partnership and just the desire to serve is so high here that I am just very impressed. And so, because as we know, I mean, staff at the end of the day gets things done, and so it's been great. So if I'm going to be in a pandemic, I'm glad I'm on the team that I'm on, is what I'm saying. So, and that's it for my report.
Thank you, Mr. Boone. Okay. Any other comments? All right. Let's move to the business agenda. And what we have on the business agenda today is the appointment of the Budget Committee members. See on page 25. May we have the staff report?
Yes, so as you are already aware, Don mentioned earlier that we brought this before the board back in, what month are we now? Back in March. And at the time we filled one of the vacancies. We did not have any applicants from District 3, so we went back out. We advertised from February 27th, or sorry, back in February is when we brought it to you. We advertised from February 27th through March 27th, and this morning Teresa forwarded on to you another applicant that we had received yesterday evening. So in total, we have 4 applicants. 2 of them are from District 2, Greg Sawyer, who was a Budget Committee member last year, Robert Shortman, and they are both from District 2, and then from District 1, we have Jed Arnold. And then also, while her business resides in District 3, Danelle Davis also resides in District 1. And so at this time, staff is looking for direction as to if you would like to appoint one of these 4 applicants to the Budget Committee.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Steele. So from our work session, I wonder if you might say a little bit about what you think would be a good balanced budget committee, and are there any characteristics that you think are important?
I provided that information in the agenda summary, and I defer to the commissioners to make that decision.
This is Commissioner Nebaker, and I have a question. I was not able to read from the email that came about the expenditure qualifications. Was this all there was? I mean, it says it's from Janelle Davis.
Yes, she has owned a business in Clatsop County for 11 years, and she's a member of rural Clatsop County.
Was there something more?
Everything that was provided was all the information that we received from the applicant.
Okay.
I would just, this is Commissioner Webb, I would just like to say that I did not get that email.
So I will go ahead. Her name is Danelle Davis. Her business is out at 35109 Business 101. She is a veterinarian. She has resided in Clatsop County for 15 years. She resides in District 1, and she's applying for the Budget Committee. She has owned a business in Clatsop County for 11 years, and as a member of rural Clatsop County would like an opportunity to represent the business interests of this locale. She has an interest in serving on this committee is a combination of both learning and serving. She would love to see and learn how the county allocates one of its most precious resources, its funds. But she feels also that all members of our community should be participants in their local society and government.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have some more questions for Ms. Steele?
I have a procedural question. So we're, our action tonight is to approve 3 candidates, right?
I'm sorry, you were breaking up.
One.
You appointed the other position, the vacancy for District 2, you appointed that one back in February.
So,
And how about District 1?
The District 1 does not have a vacancy. At this point in time, the only vacancies were in District 2 and 3. You filled District 2 in February, and now the only vacancy that remains is District 3. And this is for an unexpired term that will expire in 2021. So this person will only fill this position for this budget cycle, unless...
Okay, so forgive me that I don't know who from District 2 we appointed. Which of these 2?
Tita Montero was appointed in February for District 2.
Okay, I'm sorry, then the packet was extremely confusing because it had, in my packet anyway, it had Jed Arnold's application in District 1, and then it had Robert Shortman and Greg Sawyer in District 2, and I didn't even see Tita's application.
She was already appointed.
Yeah.
Then why were the other two applicants in District 2 included in our package?
So, Commissioner,
right.
So we have three applicants who have not been appointed yet, and so, for now, and so what you see in the agenda item is just the names that have not been appointed yet, and then we got the 4th one since then. And so Greg Sawyer, Robert Shortman, and Jed Arnold are all applicants that have not been appointed yet. And so they would have been, so they are eligible for appointment now with the addition of the 4th.
With the what of the board? I'm sorry.
With the addition of the fourth, which is the new applicant that Monica just provided the overview on.
Okay, well, I guess I don't understand. Do we have some kind of a board rule or something else about appointing people from districts?
We have, it does not state that they have to come from each district. It's just been a practice in regards to equity. So that way there is a representative from the board from each district, and there is a representative from the lay budget committee from each district. And so that is why we attempted to go back out to try and get a District 3 applicant, but we were not able to get a District 3 applicant. So what we are presenting to you now are just applicants that we have received, but none of them reside in District 3.
Okay. Well, so we're only going to vote on one person tonight.
Yes,
And it
there
does
is
not
only one
have to be
vacancy
one.
remaining.
Okay, I'm sorry. Well, the packet was very confusing in that regard. Are we open to discussion now about this one person?
We're open to discussion about filling their role. So discussion could go whatever direction you want it to go in at this point. We're not. It sounded like we were going to discuss it, and then we'll talk about nominating.
Okay. Well, then I guess.
So we are,
okay.
but we are looking. I'm sorry, Monica. District 3 is an unexpired term that'll end February next year. So the person we nominate today will fill this, like Monica just said, will fill this. They will come to this budget session, and then next year the position will come open again.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. So Commissioner Webb, you had some questions or some comments?
No, just wanted to know where we were because Commissioner Thompson had some issues that I guess I'd like to hear more about.
I would too. Commissioner Thompson, would you like to speak to your concerns?
I would, thank you, Chair Sullivan. Commissioner Webb, I was sensitive back in February when you said you wanted to see about recruiting someone from your district. I thought that was reasonable, as the Assistant County Manager said, looking to have a comparable equity and dispersion of the representation on the Lay Budget Committee. So I reached out to some folks I knew in your district. I don't know how this candidate came up. I assumed that you had recruited someone in order to have that geographical equity. If this is news to you, or you don't know this person, or this person doesn't enjoy your support, I'm just curious. She does provide geographical equity, and that's a consideration. When I looked at the candidates, that's one point. The second point, when I looked at the three candidates, what I see is that Jed Arnold comes to almost all of our meetings. So if I were looking for somebody who understood how the Board of Commissioners operates and how we disperse the funds that we have, he would appear to me to be more committed to observing and participating in our county process. That's what I noticed when I looked at the candidates. I think probably everyone who applies is qualified. I look for commitment and dedication to the purpose. If you had a primary concern about geographical equity from your district, I would take that very seriously. I would take that into account. So
thank you.
Yeah, it's back to you.
Okay. Well, yes, I did recruit Janelle Davis. I know her extremely well. And one of the reasons I have been trying very hard to get people from the rural part of my district become more active on a number of our advisory groups. As I say, I know Danelle well. She's a member of my church. We're very good friends. And she's also my dog's doctor, which can give you some indication of how much faith I have in her. But most importantly, the Miles Crossing area has become a great concern of mine as we go through the comp plan process. And I think we have a lot of challenges there in terms of the municipal infrastructure, the delivery of services and utilities there. And I tried to get someone who has been on that site. I think her hospital has been there for 11 years. And a lot of her clientele are a part of the rural animal folks. She doesn't do large animals, but she does do small, and she actually runs a small farm at the site of her hospital, where she has goats and sheep and chickens and turkeys and all kinds of little creatures like that. And I like, she's a scientist, so she's a fact-based person. And she, I like the way she thinks. I like how analytical she is. And she, I think, could represent that area very, very well. And I would just love to have a truly rural person from my district to be represented on the budget committee. And that's my spiel. Am I still on?
Yes,
Hello?
you're still there.
Sorry, I had to unmute. Thank you, Commissioner Webb. Does anyone else have some points they would like to add to this discussion?
This is Commissioner Nebaker. I appreciate having people who, are from areas that haven't been well represented. I do. And obviously, if she is a doctor, she's intelligent and she has a business, so she has some good sense of finances. I'm also very impressed with Jed Arnold for the same reasons that Commissioner Thompson has mentioned, and also that he has a budget committee background, and that he's been involved in administration of, for government. So, I guess I'm kind of taking a neutral position, except that he has applied. Well, we've had his application in for a while, and he does come to the meetings, and so.
And I assume you know. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I assume that you know that he works for Hampton Lumber, and that he is their community liaison person, and so he is paid to attend our commission meetings.
I did not know that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other comments about any of the other candidates? Okay, let's move to, do we have a nomination for this position?
Yes. This is Commissioner Rev. I would like to nominate Danelle Davis to fill the unexpired term on the Budget Committee.
Commissioner Thompson seconds the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Let's have any discussion, any further discussion? Okay,
I would like to make, excuse me, Commissioner Sullivan, I'd like to make one comment. As long as I've been on the commission, I don't think we have had a woman on the Budget Committee. So now we would have 2, and I think that could be a nice thing.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? All right, Teresa, may we have the motion on the floor is to have Danielle Davis fill the unexpired term on the Budget Committee that would go until it would end in February 2021. February 2021. Teresa, could you do the roll call, please?
Commissioner Thompson?
The vote.
Aye.
Commissioner Kula?
Aye.
Commissioner Well?
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Aye.
Commissioner Nebeker?
Aye.
Okay, the motion to appoint Danielle Davis to the unexpired term of the Budget Committee is passed 5-0, and she will serve on this budget cycle coming up soon. Thank you. Does anyone have any other comments about this? All right. Go ahead. Did someone want to say something? Okay. Any business good for the order? Good of the order.
This is Commissioner Nebeker. I just want to support what everyone else has said, that our staff is working very hard, and I am very grateful to them. And it gives me a great deal of confidence when I speak to my constituents, and I'm having calls every day, and some of them last for an hour. People want to talk, and I can tell them with great confidence that our staff is doing everything possible to mitigate the problems of this pandemic, and how competent they are and how caring they are, and it does help for people to hear this. So I'm very grateful to the staff.
I would like to second that thought.
Yeah, I as well.
Yeah, I too, and I think it's important that part of our role is kind of being the ambassadors of the county, like Dr. McNichol said, is that we do spread the good news about how great a job that our staff is doing, and also to acknowledge the sacrifices that everyone is making in order to get through this pandemic. Because when I'm talking to constituents, they also want to talk, and we need to be out there and being good listeners, and I know that we're all doing that. So I just want to tell everybody to take good care of themselves. We need everybody here. So get the rest and eat well and get some exercise and get some sunshine out there. So anyone else? Okay, thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned. See you next time.